one woman is killed every 9 days in Australia by a current or former partner.
Relationships have become more abusive and controlling during lockdown periods. Domestic and family violence is a whole of society problem. It's not something that you can just say, right, that's your problem, you deal with it.
Over the past 2 years, Australians have been confined to their homes more than ever as a result of the COVID restrictions. Can you explain to us just what impact that has on people for whom, as a result of domestic violence, home is not a safe place to be?
Well, what we know is that living in a domestic and family violence relationship is that isolation is already a feature of those kinds of relationships. And so the lockdowns, being at home, being around someone who is abusive 24/7 just amplifies that situation so very much. And we know that the opportunities to surveil somebody 24/7 are very much there. It's hard to get out. It's hard to maintain social networks when you're locked down at home. And certainly what we've experienced in women coming to our shelters when lockdowns ease or when community transmission eases is that they report that those relationships have become more abusive and controlling during those lockdown periods. And so what we're going into now is a very important part of what we do next and how we support women and children who are living with domestic abuse.
The notion of domestic violence has been referred to as a national crisis. For you, as the CEO of Women's Community Shelters and one of the leading authorities on this issue in Australia, what can we do to tackle it if it's a crisis?
Domestic and family violence is a whole of society problem and it needs a whole of society solution. And so that's about all levels of government. It's about business, it's about philanthropy, it's about local communities, and it's about what we as individuals and in our families can do to tackle these issues. It's not something that you can just say, right, that's your problem, you deal with it. And I'm really heartened by some of the recent announcements. For example, the New South Wales government just announced the biggest investment ever in domestic and family violence response.
The number of women and children fleeing domestic violence is set to rise over the next few months as the pandemic ends. The state government has announced $500 million will be spent on extra refuges for those fleeing their homes. 75 new shelters will be constructed. It's the single biggest investment into domestic violence in the state.
I am heartened that awareness is growing, particularly in the last 7 or 8 years, but we've got so much further to go and we've all got work to do.
As you say, we're starting to see governments at a state and federal level vowing to take action, sometimes putting their money where their mouth is, which is fantastic. What more would you like to see from our government?
I think what's really important is that we address the housing crisis in Australia, because what we know is that if women don't know where they're going to be able to go as the next step, it's very hard for them to make the decision to be able to leave. You know, people make the choice between the devil they know and the devil they don't. And worrying about how that they're going to feed their children and keep a roof over their head, potentially keep working or find a job or training, all of those things cost money. And so an affordable, safe roof is really the next step for so many women. So I would like to see really significant investment in social, affordable and private housing to meet that need.
There was a time not so long ago when our collective understanding of domestic violence was very much limited to physical violence. But over the past few years, there's been a growing awareness of notions such as financial abuse and coercive control. Why is that so important?
It's very important to note that all domestic abuse starts with that coercive control. Physical abuse is just one element of it. There are many more. As you say, financial abuse, there's emotional abuse. There might even be things like spiritual abuse where someone is prevented from practicing their religion or spirituality. And what's important for people to know is that coercive control sits behind all of those elements. And as we grow in our understanding of that, we begin to see how it plays out. It becomes more visible to us. We also understand that domestic and family violence and coercive control don't just happen to one group of people or in some other community or some other place. These permeate through all areas of society, and so understanding it through this lens helps us address it better.
Every year, November 25 is declared by the United Nations to be the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. For people watching this, what is one piece of advice you have for how we can all play a role in creating a world that's free of domestic and family violence?
The first step I would recommend anybody take is to be aware of how prevalent it is and how much we can all do something about it. We know that 1 in 4 women have experienced either physical, emotional or sexual abuse since the age of 15, and that's a staggering number of people. So if we haven't experienced ourselves, we'll most certainly know somebody who has. So being aware of those issues is incredibly important, but I also say people can give of their time, their treasure, or their talent. If you have time to donate to a service that assists women and children, please do so. If you can make a financial donation, that's another option. Or if you have a particular skill and a way to get involved and this issue moves you, you can do that too.
It feels like such an overwhelming problem, but it's nice to know that everyone, every single Australian can play a role.
Absolutely everyone. I'm actually optimistic about the future and I really encourage people to do what they can where they are with what they have.
Let's finish on that optimistic note. Thanks so much, Annabelle.
Lovely to talk to you, Sarah.
Thanks for watching Body+Soul TV. Click the subscribe button to make sure you never miss a video.